Something my wife and I were discussing just this past week is the subject of feeling tired, exhausted, maybe even a little overwhelmed, because we have a lot on our plate. For context, I work full time and I work night shift even. And then she works full time at our church, and she also is a full time student, and we also have a house, and we have a toddler that we have to chase around, and of course she's married to me, so like that's a job in and of itself. Just feeling a lot of that run downness that comes from being out of the house almost every night of the week and having a lot of places to go and a lot of things to do and blah blah blah. And what came to my mind is that you're supposed to feel tired at the end of the day. You should feel exhausted. You have a limited reservoir of energy for today, and that by the time you go to sleep that night, you should have used all of it up, and that you should be ready to sleep at that point. You should be. That's how it should be. Now, a few things on this. One is, if you feel exhausted or fatigued from having not done anything that day, like the just existing, you might want to consider consulting with a professional, because that's a pretty tall, broad, bright red flag of something like depression, and that it might require professional assistance. But that is the second thing is that this is not an excuse for not maintaining a healthy work balance. That if you're doing 90 hours a week and there's no reserves left for you to invest in your children or to love your wife well, that's wrong. You need to have work-life balance. This is also not disregarding or disrespecting the reality of seasons and sowing and reaping. That there are certain seasons where you are going to have to go in harder. Like, let's say if you're just starting a business and your hiring staff is very short and you're just trying to get some momentum going, or if you're at a young stage, like you're a young family, you have a very small child, an infant, and they're going to be getting up in the middle of the night and needing changed and needing fed and stuff. Those are very high volume, high stress, high anxiety seasons, but they don't last forever. That eventually your child's going to get to another stage where they're less intimately or imminently dependent on your constant attention, and that you'll be able to throttle back a little bit in the future. But it's notable, you should not put your hope in changing of seasons. You shouldn't put your hope in maybe once this kid gets out of diapers, maybe once this kid stops wetting themselves in the at night, maybe once this kid gets out of grade school or gets their own license or gets out of this house, then we'll be able to. Or once I finally got to retirement, then I'll be able to throttle back. If you're putting your hope in a future season well beyond the pines, you will be disappointed for two reasons. One is, it's never as much of a throttle back as you think it's going to be. And if you're putting all your eggs in a basket of that, if my kid gets to grade school and then I'll start investing, or it gets to the age where they can start playing baseball or something, and then I'll start investing in them, by the time they reach there, the relationship that you have with that child will be so eroded that you won't be able to capitalize on it at that stage. And it'll be wasted, not only now, but then. Same thing applies to wives, same thing applies to relationships with your friends. If you're putting off the establishment of good, healthy, accountable friendships outside of your marriage until after your kids grow up, or until after you retire, or until after whatever, you're never going to have them. Because tomorrow never really comes. We only have today. And that you have a limited energy reserve for this moment now. Not for tomorrow, not for next year, not for the next childhood stage, not for the next marriage stage. It's for now. And so there's this weird mentality in our society of that when you get to, let's say, a half tank, that's when you need to start taking breaks, coasting out something. And no, you should use it all, because it's like timeouts in the NFL. Once the clock hits 0, you don't get any of those back. You can't store them up. You can't use them in the next game. In the same way that you can't use energy from today, tomorrow. You can't use energy from next week now. You have today. You have today's energy. And you're not guaranteed tomorrow that some 125,000 people every night die in their sleep thinking that they have tomorrow in reserve. And so they save a quarter tank, or they save half, hoping that they'll be able to store that up for tomorrow, and it doesn't happen. So use it while you got it. And that the reason we have a period of sleep every day, the reason we have to keep eating, is a reminder that there's only one that is truly omnipotent. And it's not you. And it's not me. And it's not anyone else. But God. He's the only one that is the active sustainer of the universe, that requires no inputs in order for him to continue being. And that every time you eat and every time you sleep, it's an imminent reminder from God, a gift, to remind you that he is the one that's in control, even when we're not. Because we like to deceive ourselves into this illusion of control that we try to through finances and economics and through various other means to control our environments and to control the behaviors of those around us and even ourselves. But there comes a point in which you have to surrender that control and trust in the goodwill of others to protect you. We don't like that, but it's necessary. And so you can either avoid it or deny it, or you can lean in on it and build healthy, trust-filled relationships with people around you that you can faithfully trust to look out for you spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, and physically. So that on the bad day, when your strength does run out financially, emotionally, and physically, you have a net to catch you. Because as Ecclesiastes tells us, that two are better than one because they receive a good return for their work. If one falls and he has a companion with him, his companion can help him up again. But woe to the one who falls and has no one to help him. That one person, if attacked, can be easily overcome, but two standing side by side or back to back can repel a great number, and that a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. So be encouraged in a couple of ways. The first is that if you feel tired, you should feel tired. After a long day's work, after a long day chasing kids around, after a long day of running errands, whatever, a long day should make you feel tired. And that you do need to recognize the season you're in, but you shouldn't be a slave to the season that you're in. That you should have hope for the future, but you should not put all of your hope in the future. And that today is the only day that you have been given, that you've been promised in any way, that tomorrow may not come. So cherish the opportunities for you to love your family well while you have it. Look for those opportunities and capitalize on them when you have them. And in all things, give thanks to God with contentment, and rest peacefully knowing that no matter what, He is always in control, and He is always faithful to provide for those whom He loves.